evening, everyone. Before we begin, we'd like to start with the pledge to the flag, so if you'd please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping. I just wanted to mention to everyone that tonight's proceedings will be able to be viewed on PHTV4. On Comcast cable viewers may watch it on Channel 4 or view the forum on PHTV4's YouTube site, which is youtube.com/PHTV4. I'm told that the mayoral discussion will probably be online tonight, but the full 3 candidates or 6 candidates will be on by tomorrow for sure. Okay. Okay, thank you all for coming, and welcome to tonight's forum with candidates for mayor of Palos Heights, treasurer of Palos Heights, and an alderperson. I'm your moderator, Cheryl Zott-Gallagher, part of the leadership team of the League of Women Voters of the Palos-Orland area. The League of Women Voters is more than 100 years old. We are nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government. The League believes that informed and active participation in government is the foundational principle of a strong democracy. We work to empower civic engagement by all people and work to increase understanding of public policy issues through education and advocacy. If you have any questions about the League or would like to join, talk to anyone here with an LWV button or check the table outside of this room. We are proud to be part of tonight's forum. Tonight's candidate forum will adhere to the following rules. The order in which the candidates will speak and answer questions has been decided by flipping a coin prior to the forum. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement and 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Time will be kept, and time remaining will be visible to the moderator and the candidates. Okay. When the allotted time has expired, candidates are allowed to finish a sentence before the moderator interrupts. Questions have been submitted by the audience. The questions will be asked of both candidates by me, the moderator. The League has the right to review and select questions for appropriateness and to avoid duplication. One question will be presented to each candidate, who will have 2 minutes to respond. Candidates are allowed to finish a sentence before the moderator interrupts. Subsequent questions will be addressed to each candidate, alternating which candidate gets to answer first. This rotation also guarantees an equal number of questions to each candidate. Following the time allotted for questions, candidates may make their closing statements of 2 minutes. We ask that the audience be respectful of all candidates, refrain from cheering or booing during the forum, and please silence your phones. Any campaign paraphernalia, buttons, backgrounds, banners, etc. are not permitted. No campaign promotion, visual or audio will be permitted. This event is being taped by Channel 4 and will be shown there and on Channel 4's YouTube channel. Participants in the forum agree that copyright ownership of the tapes or transcripts resides with the League of Women Voters. The candidates agree that they, their organizations, their campaigns, and their supporters will not use the forum, portions of the forum, or any audio clips, video clips, or transcripts for political advertising or other purposes without written permission from the League of Women Voters. A recording of this forum will also be available on our League of Women Voters Facebook page. At this time then, please welcome your candidates in the order in which they will be speaking. And we have before us Mr. Jeffery Key on the left and Mr. Robert Straz on the right. In no particular order, your opening statement, Mr. Key.
Sure. My name is Jeff Key. My wife Diane and I have lived in Palos Heights for 22 years. We have 3 adult children and 4 grandkids. My wife, who serves on the Palos Heights Library Board, and I are both retired teachers. I was a junior high band director for 35 years and was a substitute teacher for another 11. I was union president for over 20 years. I am also a retired worship pastor who served several churches for 26 years. For the last 14 years, it has been my privilege to represent the residents of the First Ward on the Palos Heights City Council. While serving on 6 different committees, my main focus has been chairman of Parks and Recreation. I have also served as a council's representative on both the Beautification Committee and the city's Economic Advisory Committee. I am a passionate person. I was passionate about teaching, I'm passionate about my faith, and I'm passionate about Palos Heights. No one on the council has worked harder the last 14 years than me. Frankly, Palos Heights could use some passion, because when it comes to goal setting, communication, and management of getting consequential projects approved and moving forward, we have fallen into the habit of losing focus, which results in disagreement, which wastes both time and money. Important projects have stalled and failed. I believe the remedy for this is new leadership, focusing on collective goal setting, a steady communication of those goals, and the management of getting those goals attained. We need a new vision for Palos Heights, and we need to communicate that vision. We cannot afford to repeatedly fail in moving vital issues through the council. We need to be proactive when it comes to development opportunities. We need to stop accepting the status quo. We need to have a fresh commitment to the business community. We need to be communicating to resolve conflict and to provide a clear direction to achieve goals. It is my intention to provide that leadership, to work with the council to shape policies that will provide a stronger future for Palos Heights. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Straz.
Great. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight, give the opportunity to express our views. Obviously, my name is Bob Straz. I've lived in the city of Palos Heights for 48 years now, with my wife of 50 years, Madeline, sitting here in the second row. We have 2 children, adult children, Scott and Lynn. Lynn is also happens to be married to John O'Brien, who his father lives over in Navajo, so we've got obviously a deeper commitment to Palos Heights. I've been mayor for the last 24 years, and I wanted to continue on this journey. I believe that I have the demeanor, the management ability to earn your endorsement. Before I was mayor, I was active. I was president of the Chamber of Commerce. I served on the first St. Alexander's Pastoral Council. I was on the Recreation Advisory Board for about 20 years and the Police Pension Board here in Palos Heights for 20 years, and also actually served on the Village of Worth Pension Board. I think it's important in your decision to recognize that I have 45 years of senior banking experience. And of that 45 years, at least 25 years my office has been in Palos Heights. And I know the personal sides of people and the business sides. In 25 years, we were broke, basically. We had $200,000 in a checking account, and that was borrowed from the water and sewer account. Since then, we have basically run at a surplus the last 24 years. And why that's important? Because over the 24 years, I've contributed more than $12 million in grants through my relationships with, I serve as the vice president of the Southwest Conference of Mayors and on the executive board of the Metropolitan Mayors Caucus, which is an organization of 275 mayors. And this is able to give us things like parking lot grants for the new parking lot that's going up in Lake Catherine, and my relationships with Congressman, Senators Cunningham and Mary Dill. We have gotten a number of grants. We'll talk about those later. And we have had programs here, programs for the iPass, the Real ID, and tomorrow there's a program here for on scanning. So thank you. I'll stop there.
Okay, the first question will be for Mr. Straz. Since the median property tax in Cook County jumped almost 20% the past year, what specific plans do you have to bring relief to residents of Palos Heights?
Well, through the different exemptions, we make sure that the people have all the exemptions they get, whether it be a senior exemption or a property freeze. We have run at a very low tax rate compared to other towns in the area. The only towns probably in this area that are lower than us right now are Orland Park and Crestwood, and that's done primarily from the fact that the majority of their tax revenue comes from retail sales tax, which we don't have the ability to do. We collect about $1.5 million a year in sales tax, where somewhere in like Orland Park does about $20 million. So I think we've been very frugal as far as our tax rate. We have not increased our tax rate specifically very often. I think my tax bill went up $100 this year, if I top of my head. And I think when you compare the rates that we have, and when you compare rates, you've got to look at what's in that rate. In our rate, we have the city itself. We also have the recreation department. whereas many towns have separate park districts, which is not in their rate. So it's a complicated thing, but it takes time to look through it. But you'll see that our actual tax rate for the city is on the lower side of what's available and what's being levied across the board.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Key. Would you like me to repeat it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the city does a wonderful job of using the tax dollars both from commercial and from residential to run the city. And we have wonderful departments. The police department is top-notch, and our recreation department also. And we always have to keep in, it's not just the surface stuff that's happening. We're in the middle of a relining project in the water and sewer area. We're going to be investing $10 to $12 million over the next 10 years. And so we're always looking ahead at projects, both running the city and capital programs too. But I think the city does a good job with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question goes to Mr. Key. Would you address the issue of Palos Heights annexing Shepherd High School? Would it be beneficial for Palos Heights?
I didn't quite hear it.
Would you address the issue of Palos Heights annexing Shepherd High School? Would it be beneficial for Palos Heights?
We literally just found out about, I found out about their request to do that on Friday. When we saw the agenda for the coming Tuesday, it was on there, and I knew we were going to have a committee of the whole meeting to discuss it. That's the first we found out. And so we're just gathering information. In fact, Tuesday, we voted to have the attorney write up the ordinance, and then in the next 2 weeks, we're going to gather as much information. I sent the city administrator and the mayor an email the next day saying there's a lot of questions with salary, pensions, insurance of the security of people working there. There's a lot to go in there. I mean, they've not been a portion of the city for a long time, so it's not an easy thing to just learn something on Friday and start voting on it. So we need to get a lot more information before we do that.
Thank you. Mr. Straz, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, they approached me last year, and in the meantime, I was accumulating the information that actually Jeff asked for, and I have it all available. I'll get it till next week. But it comes down to it comes down to safety for one thing. Right now, for you who don't know, Shepherd is patrolled for the most part by Cook County Sheriff, and the Cook County Sheriff Department, although they do a decent job, if there's a call there, they may have one car in this whole sector, and we for the most part respond to their calls. So the idea would be to protect the students, our students, because that's half of our school district, that's half of the town. Would be we'd have a community service officer, and the cost of that community service officer, the total cost of their benefits, their everything, pension, would all be picked up by Shepherd. Then we would hire a newer officer to replace him on the streets at a much lower salary, so we would save about $30,000 or $40,000 a year in salary. Another benefit, and I'm not trying to get ahead of you on this,
you're right.
But the fact is right now they don't pay a utility tax because they're not in the city. So we have a utility tax that we've charged to most of the schools and to the schools and the churches and such. Since they don't pay real estate taxes, they would be subject to our utility tax. So that's going to actually have an emphasis or a hit to them for another $20,000 a year they'd be paying in taxes they don't pay now. Now they're going to get a small reduction in their water bill because they're being paid out of state. I mean, out of the district. So that's going to come down. But the net is it'll net us about $15,000 to $20,000. A year in money, but it's not a money thing. I think it's really, they came to us, it's a safety issue. I mean, there's, as they said last night, they don't have very few crime to speak of, but if something happens there, I'd rather have our officer making the calls as far as what's going on in that school, as opposed to having to respond to somebody from Cook County tell us, our people, what to do. I think as we get a better handle. So, thank you.
Thank you. The next question, Mr. Straz, you're first.
Yeah.
What is your vision for Palos Heights?
Vision, as I said, I've lived here 46 years, 48 years, time flies. It's the fact that I think it's a great town. It reminds me somewhat of Mayberry back in the day. I mean, the vision is that we will you know, we're not going to be, our downtown area is not going to be like some. It's not going to be like LaGrange, okay? We haven't been around for 150 years. We don't have a train that goes through the middle of our town. We have very well done job, I think, or done a job of transforming what used to be retail stores and small retail shops, you know, the Cinderella shops, the Ben Franklin's, the little, what do you call it, drugstores that we had, Reni's. We've turned them into restaurants and viable operations. What's that done is it's changed our need for parking, and that's a major problem. And you know, we addressed that somewhat with the municipal parking lot that we put into play a number of years ago. We've got the spot at 71st and 123rd Street that we voted last night to tear the house down when we bought that spot. We've also, we're going to be closing on the house next door to that, just to the south of that. The long-term plan is not to, short-term plan is not to tear it down, but just to rent it. But we, as part of our comprehensive plan that was done in 2019, one of the key points is to start assembling properties that can be used in the development of a downtown parking area, and to make it a little bit easier to get around and to get around the town. So that's what we're going to continue to do. But you know, we're going to take the business development district that we established. We got a little bit behind the time there because we lost our economic development coordinator during the time, but we're moving ahead with that, and that'll be putting new twist into, you know, what we've already done as far as landscaping and things, and new lights and things in the Harlem Avenue corridor.
Thank you. Mr. Key, same question. What is your vision?
Thank you. First, I'd like to make a comment about the last question, because the mayor said that the school district had come a year ago. One of the problems is that the administration heard about it a year ago. The 8 of us who have votes on this kind of thing heard about it on Friday. We're not involved in any of the discussions. We're not involved in any of the fact-finding, getting information, and so it feels like we're being rushed through that. We have a certain character of Palos Heights, and I have no intention of changing that. I love every moment that we live in Palos Heights. We love that small town feel where there's a bakery in town and those small mom and pop stores, and that's not going to ever change. And but on this, in the same, we cannot have a city where developers come in who want to, change the look of Harlem Avenue or invest there, or on property that might be available, and then we bully them to the point where they leave. And we can't, if we're going to try to provide like the parking issue for our business community, we can't start a project and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then the 8 of us change our minds because we've lost focus, because we didn't have goals. We didn't make those goals collectively. They're happening in the building, but they're not happening collectively. We have a great city, safe streets, great schools, great, rec department. Life here is great, and so we want to keep it that way. But that doesn't mean we should be satisfied. Good enough is not good enough, and we can make it even stronger than we've had in the past. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Key, this question goes to you. How will you promote cooperation among city officials?
We need to communicate better. We need leadership in terms of setting goals, but we need to do that collectively. I've been an alderman for 14 years, and I think we've had a committee of the whole meeting maybe a half dozen times. But it didn't have anything to do with goal setting. And so we have a project come through, and they go through the committee system. And so, like with the renovation of City Hall, which is 70 years old, 4 of the aldermen worked on that for 18 months. But all 8 of us didn't discuss it, just 4. And so when it comes out of committee and goes to council, and then a couple people change their mind about it, and it was expensive, but everything's expensive. And so what happens is instead of we lose sight of the goal, and we start arguing with each other, and leadership steps in, communicates, and that communication will solve the conflict. because we'll be putting a target and shooting arrows at it instead of shooting 8 arrows and then running around with a target trying to get in front of those arrows. So we need to communicate better, whether it's through, written, orally, or in meetings. But that has to be an upgrade.
Thank you. Mr. Straz, same question. How would you promote cooperation among city officials?
Yeah, and the couple instances that were spoken of, the parking lot for one, it's true. It was my idea, first of all, to enter into the letter of intent and write a first refusal on a piece of property as part of my assembling of properties if it ever came available. And then when Mr. Wigbolte's mother-in-law died, they came to us and we decided to buy it. And to a man, or woman too, the aldermen all agreed to do it. It went to planning and zoning. It got a turn down there, so it needed a supermajority. It came back to the council, and then for political reasons, some of the aldermen decided they didn't want to support that project at the time. At the end of last year, we had a meeting, and I communicated with all the individuals. I said, if we're not going to do this, we're going to sell this piece and get out from under this thing. And then all of them agreed to go ahead and pursue the parking lot at 71st Court and 123rd Street. So that's how we do it. And we're going to do it. We voted the other day to tear down the property, and I solely believe, and my intention is to continue going ahead and process that parking lot. And as I said earlier, we have already purchased the property next door. We got together to do that. As far as the building department, I mean, we've had a conversation with the planning and zone, or the building and grounds committee, and their intention is, I've already put $600,000 in the budget for next year to remodel part of City Hall, and what they're going to do in the building and grounds committee is try to come up with an ad hoc committee to try to soothe and get everybody on board as far as what should be done. We did some completions at City Hall. We built a new conference room in the back, which used to be an old garage, and we put a new kitchen in. So we did some of the things. We just couldn't agree upon everything. So I think now if we do an ad hoc committee, that will get everybody on board and things going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Straz, this question is for you. Lately, 2 alders have been replaced. Who decides on the replacements? Should residents have a say in the choice, and should an election be held to replace them?
Well, state statute says that's the way it goes, that I have the appointment and then it has to be ratified by the city council, and that's actually what happened. I happened to pick 2 individuals that I knew from town, both of which I think are extremely qualified, in the fact that they are both running for election again. They're on the ballot now, and neither one of them have an opponent. I think that kind of clarifies the fact that, the people I picked were probably the ones that should have been picked. But they both have been longtime residents. Scully family, and obviously Mrs. Scully happens to be a Reynolds, and they go back a long time in this community. Dan Brennan, the other one, is an extremely successful businessman over the years. Those of you who know Joe Daniels, he's the Dan in Joe Daniels. Though he sold it a number of years ago, besides some of his other ventures as far as in the community, he volunteers at Catholic Charities, owned the Windy City Thunderbolts at one time, so he's been a very active community. In fact, both of them are very active with youth programs in the town. So I try to pick people that I think portray the best image of our town and will move things forward. And again, both of them also are very astute businessmen, which is, I think, what we need in many cases to be making some of the calls in City Hall. But it's my appointment, but again, it has to be ratified by the council. But that's dictated by statute, not by, as far as going for election.
Okay. Mr. Key, did you want to respond to that?
It's the mayor's prerogative, and the mayor's done a good job picking people to replace people that have resigned. I have no problem with the process. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next question, Mr. Key, you get the first chance to respond to this one. Our elected officials often mention our healthy financial position. If that is so, why was it necessary to have 2 new taxes?
What was the last sentence?
Why is it necessary to have 2 new taxes?
Taxes?
Taxes. Yeah.
What are the 2 new taxes you're talking about? I'll just talk about the big one down Harlem Avenue. There have been several plans to help with the business district all the way from Route 83 all the way to 127th Street, 128th Street. And, you know, the big one was the Oz plan years and years ago. And the trouble with those plans is that there was never a financial engine driving it. And so to do anything in the past, ancient past, they couldn't do it because, as the mayor pointed out, the city wasn't in a financial position to do that. So the state allows the city to put a user, you know, a consumer tax, if you will, in the taxing district, and we put a 1-cent tax. A lot of the other suburbs do the same thing. That money is going to be reinvested into the business district to make some of the changes with parking, lighting, connectivity, sidewalks, you know, signage, any, you know, infrastructure, maintenance of buildings, all that. The problem with that tax so far is we've raised over $400,000 in 2024, and we've not had one meeting to discuss with the 8 aldermen, you know, what's the path that we're going to go to invest that money. And so it's not a tax that's going to go on your real estate, but it is a tax it's a consumer's tax that's going to be invested right back into the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Straz, same question?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the other tax is, but the business development, the business district tax is the one I could address, as Jeff had mentioned. You know, granted, we did levy the tax at the beginning, or actually the end of '23. You know, started going into play. We started receiving payments, I believe, in April, actually. So $400,000 was not there all year long. It was accumulated about $30,000 a year, about a month. So. And we had a little bit of a setback, as I mentioned earlier, when our business development person left in the middle of the year. We hired somebody new. It's taken a little bit longer to catch on. But in the next planning and zoning meeting, there's going to be a proposal to go out for requests for proposals from various planning agencies to help us develop this business plan. But there's a lot more involved in just business and business development than just the business district. I mean, part of this whole thing is in the business district is assembling properties. And I spent we just came recently to my attention through some sources I had that on the west side of Harlem Avenue, most people know where the post office is, and there's about 6 or 7 units there, all owned by one individual. And through some family contacts of his, I found out that it's going to be for sale. So I've made some calls to 2 individuals who have done some business in the past in Palos. One individual happens to own a good portion of the balance of that property. So he is interested, and they're starting to talk now as far as getting together and doing something. And that's one of the major things you need in developing, even with the business development tax, is that we need the semblance of properties so that one developer can do it. Because we have so many different owners on Harlem Avenue, getting them all to agree has been a problem forever, long before I got in office. So that's one thing that where the tax comes into play, and why it is levied, to use that ultimately to fund those operations.
Thank you. Mr. Straz, this question is for you first. Will there be an expansion of the Public Arts Commission with more involvement from the community and the schools?
I'm sorry?
Will there be an expansion of the Public Arts Commission?
Well, the Public Arts Commission has done a fantastic job. Maria Santa Capriel just left and moved out of town. She was kind of the lead. We still have 2 or 3 members now. I just got an email today, actually, from an individual. I put out a request for anybody who was interested in serving on that commission to, they're looking for new members. And so I said I got that today in the email, and I passed it on to the 2 of the board members on the commission. But they've done a great job as far as bringing in art. We've got 18 pieces, I believe, that are all throughout town. And it was donated by Dr. Gallagher from Burr Ridge, and our Public Works people actually set them all, but they're all throughout town. We've got a number of murals. I think it all kind of comes down to the quality of life. For some of you who don't know, the art garden was something that I used to pass, that empty lot that was right behind the fire station, which was right next to the big transformer they've got there, Commonwealth Edison. I says, we got to do something with this. And that's kind of the first thing that started with art in town, is that we made that the art garden, art park. And there's now art in there, plantings, little path throughout. And then we've added some murals throughout. We've added, right in front of this, right here in front of this building, you'll see a sculpture, and that's part of our sculpture donation that I mentioned earlier. So it's an important thing. I think it all comes down to quality of life. That's one of the things I stand by throughout this whole thing, is that if we can improve the quality of life in this town, we've got to do it. And arts, makes people feel good, and it's important, and it'll continue.
Thank you. Mr. Key, same question.
I think the Art Commission has done a wonderful job. It was, it's one of the things that you really have to be proud of here. Not only is there an art garden, but with the murals and the pieces of statuary which are on Lake Catherine, all through our park system, it's something we should be proud of. And I would certainly think that in the years to come, that committee is going to continue down that path of getting more art and more murals here in town. I would certainly support that. I've been sitting on the beautification committee, which does work with the Art Commission to help out on their projects that they have, and we try to have a discussion with them because we want to support that. I would certainly continue to do that, and I don't know why the question is expanding it. Is that in terms of having people on there? Because I think we've had a little bit of a problem keeping the number of people on the commission itself.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Key, this question is for you first. Why the delay in development at 83rd and Harlem and the old Dominick's?
You asked two different locations.
We want to address
Do you
either
want
one?
Route 83 in Harlem, or do you want Pete's?
Let's take 83rd and Harlem first. 83 in Harlem.
It's so complicated. It's hard to describe it in 2 minutes, but that's in a TIF district. The senior living owned it. They sold it to SEMA. SEMA wants $2.5 million to sell it. The only people interested was a gas station. I lobbied against that gas station. I think we can do better than a gas station. But there's going to be, right now, the latest we kind of hear is that it's going to be a mini mart gas station. But I know that there's other investors that want to come in. The last time SEMA came to the city council, asked for an extension. They said they've been offered $4 million for the property. They want to put in a multi-use, and they would need TIF funds for that. But once again, we don't communicate about the TIF district. In my 14 years, we've never discussed the TIF district in terms of the goals. We have not set any goals for that. It's going to expire in three and a half years. And so what are we going to do? Are we going to extend the TIF? Are we going to retire the TIF and re-TIF? What are we going to do? And so that's one of the problems. It gets back to that goal setting, communication, achieving those, because that money in a TIF district is there to invest with development. Obviously, SEMA owns the property. They've been given the approval for the gas station. I think we can do better than that, and I think we should, help. But it's taken a long time because they went for a county tax incentive, and we passed it, and the county took over a year to pass it. Thank you.
Mr. Straz, same question.
Yeah, the same, not too much different from what Jeff said. The TIF district is there. The senior living place decided they didn't want to use the TIF funds. They used the 7C from the county, is what SEMA did with their piece. They didn't want to use TIF funds either. The only property that actually would qualify, because there's some very specific things what qualifies for TIF financing, was Tiffany Square, which, as you know, has just been remodeled, and that was remodeled with the TIF funds. That's the purpose of it, was to bring new development and entice new tenants to come in, entice additional revenue from retail sales tax, and that's where we use the TIF funds. Other than that, right on the corner now, we are in negotiation. The city is trying to buy the property that's behind the CIBC Bank, which happens to be the bank I built in 1980 when I was with the Worth Bank, but that's another story. They're looking to sell it, but I, through a friend of mine who happens to own a couple of national stores, retail stores. He'd like to move into Palos Heights. He has some interest in it. I can't go into a lot of detail because, like in many things, when you deal with developers, you have to sign non-disclosure agreements, and we had to sign one here. So, but there's some negotiation where there may be another user for that piece. What happens on the other side? There's no non-disclosure, but SEMA says there's somebody willing to pay $4 million for the piece, but they have not come to us with a plan. So can't tell you what the plan is. It's not something we're holding back from anybody. But I have never talked to anybody about a plan about that piece, so I can't say that it's going to be sold or not. They were going to have a time frame when if the individual didn't come up and make a decision, they were going to go ahead with their option, which is the Pride Store, which I've seen a number of them out in the western suburbs is where they are, and they're very nice operations and with a standalone restaurant. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Straz. Mr. Straz, next question for you. What is your position on gambling? What is your position on gambling?
Who's that to?
Mr. Straz.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm opposed to video poker. I don't think it's the image that we want to have in our town. I mean, I see, different towns, you go to Crestwood, every other strip mall has a video poker place in it. I just don't think that's the image that we want here in Palos Heights on Harlem Avenue. I don't want to, we're people who have restaurants, and I appreciate, that they think it's good for themselves, but the fact is, when you start advertising what kind of slot machines you have as opposed to what kind of hamburgers you have, I think you're in the wrong business. I don't appreciate the big banners in front of stores, advertising slot machines and the like. We've had a referendum here, and it's been turned down. Video poker has, and I have to go with that. I'm not against gambling per se. I mean, we are getting some revenue from the casino over in Homewood through an agreement we have with the number of suburbs to share in that money, and that's fine. But it's not damaging our environment and our image, and that's what I'm concerned about. We talked about quality of life. To me, quality of life is an image thing too. Whether we talk about arts, the different types of buildings we could have here in town. Video poker just doesn't fit that image for me, and I may be wrong, but that's just my own personal feeling, and I stand by it.
Mr. Key?
Thank you. I'm glad you called it gambling and not gaming, because that's just one of those little things that they use a word like game and like it's fun. But, when this has come up in the past, it's actually had 2 referendums, and the first one lost significantly by significant numbers. The second time it was 60-40, the residents didn't want it. And when that came through the council, I advocated for that to go to referendum, because I don't think it should be the 8 of us on the council making that decision. I think the residents should make that decision. Like the mayor pointed out, it would be disingenuous of us to accept money from the casino and then say, well, let's keep gaming, out of the restaurants. I personally don't think that we need it here. It does not fit our image. I can understand why the restaurants want it. I would advocate for us using the money that we do get from the casino to offset, like our stickers for our automobiles. Maybe we should put that money towards that and then lower the price of the vehicle stickers, or maybe they could be free if we get that much money from them. I do believe this issue is going to come back up. I do not trust that the state is going to step in and say, if you have a liquor license, you're paying for it, you're going to be able to have it. We've already made a move a number of years ago. We have an ordinance on the books that says you can't advertise. So even if gaming came here, you could not have any advertising for that. You can't have any lighted signs or big balloons out in front of the establishments. And so we have made some plans for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just bring just a point, that the money from the casino by statute can only be used for reduction of pension obligations and for capital improvements. Those are the only things it can be used
Okay.
for. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Easy to do, though.
yeah, no, but that's just what statute says. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Key, you're first on this one. Should local government have term limits in all positions.
I totally agree with that. I think there should be term limits. I would advocate for that. I think actually we're in a good position right now with the age of the people that are sitting on our council. I don't think their intention is to stay alderman for another 24 years or whatever. I think there should be term limits. I think there should be term limits in this state. I think there should be term limits in this country, and I would advocate for that for our city as well.
Thank you. Mr. Straz?
I don't. I think the ballot box is your ultimate term limit. I look at the standpoint, there's many things that I've learned over the years. Again, you know, the 24 years that I've been in, as I mentioned earlier, I serve on a couple of area-wide mayors groups, you know, Southwest Conference of Mayors, which is 22 mayors, or 22 communities in our Southwest area, and the executive board of the Metropolitan Mayors Caucus. And that allowed me to learn a lot of things that I wouldn't have gotten, you know, if I only was here 8 years. Okay. Even 4 years, it's rough. You can't do it. The fact is, the ability to make those contacts, you know, with the representatives. I mean, for example, I had Representative Caston was in my office 2 weeks ago, and we are on line to receive a $1 million grant from them through last year's appropriation for the extension of the water main to bring into the Palos Hospital. And that wouldn't be done unless unless I had a personal, you know, contact with him to make that plea. Just one thing, for example, I know the League of Women Voters out there had a brochure about the parking lot that's going to be opened in Lake Catherine. How that came about was I was at a meeting with the Metropolitan Mayor, with the MWRD, and they're talking about permeable paver parking lots. I said, hey, we could use that here. So they funded half of it. And on the other hand, through the Southwest Conference of Mayors, I was able to get the other half funded. So we're getting a parking lot for next to nothing just because of the contacts I made over the years. And that came from experience and the like. Another problem is, you see, you know, in this election here, there's going to be 3 debates. Well, there's a number of other aldermen are running unopposed. I mean, we'd have people who don't want to step up and run. So what do you do then? I mean, how do you fill spots when people don't run for election? So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Straz, this question is for you first. What is your plan to continue enriching and promoting the public library, ensuring access to broad and diverse information?
Well, actually, other than appointing the trustees, we don't have any control over the library. That's a separate, they make their own rules and regulations there. So it's really not germane to this discussion here, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Same response?
I mean, I don't think there's not one person involved with the city governance that doesn't support 100% our library, the library board, all their activities. We were able to actually help them out when the county screwed up the
tax levy,
the tax relief thing, you know, and then we didn't get the money from the state, and we were able to help them out on a short-term basis, and so, you know, we're all in with the library.
Yeah, we appoint the trustees, but they act independently from us. So.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Key. Years ago, the city paid for the improvements on Cook County managed Ridgeland Avenue with the stipulation that the county would reimburse the city. Has that happened? And if not, why not? May I repeat that? Years ago, the city...
No. I heard you. I don't know. And we could certainly find whoever asked that question.
I don't know what improvement means. It was the medians being taken. It was okay. It was. I know what it was. If you don't mind, I'll take it.
Go ahead.
It was. We took out the medians. Yes. If you remember, the medians are all on Ridgeland Avenue near Westgate. There, we're all crumbling, and we asked them to take the medians out. And the way we did it through an agreement, memorandum of understanding, where we would fund we bid it out, we funded it, and they reimbursed us, and yes, they did reimburse us. And the short answer to the question is they did pay us back.
Yeah, it was a complicated issue, though, because they were supposed to do it like 5 years before they actually did, and it was like one of those back burner issues, so every time we were expecting it to get done, they didn't do it. So finally, we stepped in and said, how about if we make the arrangements to have it done, we'll pay for it, and then you can pay us back, and that's how it eventually got done.
But
And we work with, through the Public Works Department.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question before your closing statements. And so, Mr. Straz, the question is, what will it take to get a center turn lane on 127th between Harlem and Ridgeland? Any hope at all?
Center turn lane. Okay, no, I know what you're talking about. The center turn lane down Harlem, 127th Street.
Oh.
I had, actually, it's funny you asked that question. Today I gave a tour to the Dutch church senior group, and they asked the same question. So, excuse me, your phone's ringing, by the way. The problem is the right-of-way. I mean, there's not enough room there. If we would do something like that, you'd have to widen 127th Street. To widen 127th Street, you'd have to go to the south, okay, which would take out the front yards of everybody on the south side of 127th Street, because all of those, we'd have to put a new sewer line through there, and that would take out the front yard. So in many cases, you may have their street running within 20 feet to 25 feet of somebody's front door, and it's just not physically impossible to do, I guess, is my point.
Okay. I've been told we have to ask one more question because a lot of people has asked this one. So, Mr.
What
Key.
we're most proud of?
Mr. Key, what is the status of the Pete's property at 127th and Ridgeland?
Is that for me?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Well, actually, I mean, the last 2 weeks, I've sent emails twice to our community development staff person, Amy Engels, and because we haven't heard anything, it's so complicated. I can't. It's hard to explain. But I mean, Pete's owns it. They've invested a lot of money in upgrades to the strip mall there. They repaved the parking. They redid the sidewalks, put planters in, redid the roof. And they've made a lot of improvements. They're still coming, but they in doing their other stores at other locations, they're redoing like 7 more stores here, and we're kind of on the bottom of the list. So, and they're having trouble with supply chain and getting enough employees, and it's just a long thing. But I'd like to tell you, every year we're told that it's going to happen. It's going to happen in 6 months. It's going to happen in 6 months. And then we tell people, oh, it's going to happen in 6 months. And then it doesn't happen in 6 months. It's very frustrating. But I mean, I've asked about it in the last couple of weeks. And supposedly the lawyers from Pete's are coming to meet with Amy and getting maybe a fresh timeline on that.
Thank you. Mr. Strauss, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I met with Stephanie DeMontis, who's basically runs, she's Pete's daughter, and she runs the company 10 years ago. That's how long it started, long before, right after, well, halfway through my term. And they definitely had an interest. They did buy the center, as you know, but as Jeff said, they keep accumulating property. They just bought the old PD's 2 at 159th and in LaGrange, and they have a store a mile away from there. So they're not even going to, I doubt if they're going to build that. They just finished up their distribution center in Tinley Park, and they're building a store in front of that. So we're just in line, and it's like many of the things that happen in business development. People say, why don't you have a Trader Joe's here? Well, we don't bring stores and tell them they have to be here. Especially when somebody owns a property, it's at their discretion when they open up, and as long as they maintain the property, which they do, and they've maintained the balance of that property very well. I mean, they remodeled the whole thing. It looks a lot nicer than it did with the old owners. But the fact is, we're at their discretion as far as when they want to do it. We've been told, as Jeff said, I know Amy talked to the attorney who happens to be one of the local firm here in town who represents them. And actually, Dan Brennan said he saw somewhere that they said, someone said, this is someone now, that we're next in line, whatever that means. So, but I'll take that. When I buy my first piece of loaf of bread there, I'll believe it. Because it just it's been going on so long. It's very frustrating because just as you have that question, Jeff gets that. I mean, that's the number one question. Although it actually has slowed down a lot recently because I think people realize
you know, they did put the money into it. They paid a good buck for that shopping center, and it's sitting there, and it's got to be costing them money, but it's there. So it's not our, again, we can't force them to build it. Let's put it that way. But the good sign is that they bought the property. Okay, if they didn't buy the property, then it would be a whole different explanation, right, going forward. Sorry.
The only people that like it vacant are the students at Shepherd, because
They can park there.
They can park there and no one's complaining or giving them tickets.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. This completes the question and answer part. And now you will each have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Mr. Straz, you go first.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank every supporters who have put lawn signs in their front yard throughout town. I really appreciate it. And I know know what I've done, and I know what we can do together. And I think what I bring to town here is a fiscal responsibility with years of management experience. You know, I've proven that. I've got a, I can do the job. I've been able, to do that, and I know what the job is. I'm very intricately involved in a lot of things, locally and regionally. I've got many contacts to enhance our options going forward. It's always been about the quality of life. From when we first started, the first couple things we did we could do easily. We changed street sites on Harlem Avenue. We put all new street lights on Harlem Avenue. We did all new landscaping on Harlem. I put an emphasis with our public works people to, we want to make the town, the quality of life good, make the town look nice. We put a lot more money in landscaping than we ever did. In leadership, I think I have the demeanor and a cooperation. I can deal with people. I can deal with the rest of the council. And if you have quality, if you have a question about my ability to do this, I think it's there's a pretty simple way for you to figure it out. Just ask the other elected officials, on the council, who they're supporting. 8 out of the 10 of people on the council support me in my reelection bid. So I think that says a lot as far as what people think. We have to work together to get this thing done, and we'll continue to get it done. Because I said this is the greatest little town there is in the state of Illinois, if not further. I mean, I believe in it. I've been here. I've devoted my life to it, and I will continue to do so. Some things, we don't get right, and I apologize for those. But it's nothing, nothing's going to change. We're going to keep changing things to make it better for us. It may take a little longer than some people want, but we'll get it done. So thank you.
Mr. Key.
Palos Heights is a wonderful place, and I've loved every minute that my wife and I have lived here, and I'm always going to feel that way. However, now is not the time to be complacent. Now is not the time to relax because of past success. Now is not the time to let consequential issues stagnate. Now is not the time to ignore the needs of our business community. Over the last 4 years, the following things have happened. The purchasing of property adjacent to the business district to provide much-needed parking has languished for over 2 years. A well-known developer intending to build $35 million worth of townhomes pulled away from the project after repeated bullying in committee. The much-needed renovation of City Hall failed after 18 months of committee work. Even though the electric wiring has been described as dangerous, the HVAC system will still need upgrading and the bathrooms are falling apart. We are failing to be good stewards of city property. Our residents endured waiting up to 12 weeks to get their permits approved for their roofs. There was more time spent on excuses than solving the crisis. We have collected over $400,000 in Harlem Avenue taxing district, yet we have not had one goal-setting meeting as a council. The Gateway TIF district is in the final stages, and we have not set any goals for its future. If you ask the individual council members their view about any of these subjects, you're going to get 8 different answers, and that is a terrible problem. We are going in 8 different directions, and we are not solving problems collectively. This is not acceptable to me. Lack of direction, lack of communication, and lack of management is exacerbating the problem. It's not improving it. Our residents deserve leadership with a vision and a solid plan to make that vision a reality. I covet the chance to provide that leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to take about a 5-minute break if you want to get up and stretch a little bit.